Доброго дня, колеги.
Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. May I welcome you at the UCMC today. We have some kind of an ordinary topic associated with the progress of privatization, with the policy of management of the public property. And I believe that you know that this is one of the most important issues if you're talking about reforming. There are a lot of initiatives, the large scale and not so large scale initiatives, and while the legal conditions are being formed for the full-scale privatization to take place, there is a question on the part of society regarding the exercise of management of the public property in the under the current conditions. And in this discussion, there is some issue regarding the expediency of the actions on the part of the state property fund of Ukraine. So I give the floor to Ihor Bilous. May I congratulate all those who are involved or have something to do with the jurisprudence and to the State Property Fund, SPF. And I also would like to say to congratulate those who waited for a long time for the privatization and for the presence of the smaller and mid-sized business. And maybe we're going to make more progress along those lines. And today I would like to and we have, let's say, to appeal against some of the claims regarding one of the projects which were sold. Yesterday, Anthony Matthews on his Facebook page put from the untrue information. It's amazing that such an official of this top level doesn't know the information which is open sources, also on the sites of cabinet ministers and the SPF found. And it's really amazing that the journalists did not actually approach our fund as their ethics require, but we have all those information. I'm going to give you some facts. The private joint stock company for the last 4 years have been kind of the losing company. We have minus 5 million hryvnia, which is 5.5 times poorer than we had at the last year. Generally speaking, the total damage is more than 5 million hryvnia, and they're indebted to their employees. We're talking about the salaries. Next point, the major source of the incomes of the institute is the rent or the leasing, but not scientific or research work or the public orders, as some people say. Now they have 41 leasers. Very interesting information. One of those Redstone was doubtful repute or reputation, and I think the journalists can investigate into that matter and tell everybody. Over the 18 last months, they do not have any state order from the Defense Department. This is confirmed by the authorities. They say that the association with this public orders or commercial orders do not provide the possibility not only to provide necessary financial indices, but also at least to stay on the same level. Point number 3, very interesting, because this happens with many enterprises and companies. The institute and the institute was slowly moving towards the shadow privatization through bankruptcy, about which we talk a lot, and they accumulated indebtedness, and they did not keep to their profile. And such statistics is 60% of the companies which were not put to the sales, they turned into bankrupts, as a result of which the procedure of, let's say, of sale of their assets is given to the court, without any preservation of any of their profiles and without any money coming to the state budget. Very interesting fact that there is none of the director of this state-run enterprise who would not believe that this property is not his own property. We very often hear that you are going to sell our property, you are estimating our property. They do not have any property. They are hired as managers of different factories and enterprises. In March 2014, the cabinet ministers provided a list of the enterprises which are of strategic importance to the state, to which this institute was not included. This is not strategic enterprise. In May, it was included in the list of the enterprises subject to privatization during this year 2015. This was decision by the government, and everything was inspected, verified, etc., etc. Item 5. The state property fund that the tool in the procedural privatization, so to implement the instructions of the cabinet ministers, they opened the open tender, and all the information was available on our website starting from the beginning of summer. I personally met with dozens of investors, and we always regularly showed all those lists of enterprises which we are going to put to the tender. So those who say that this information was taken from the ceiling, let's say, from the skies, this is a lie. And also we opened all the documents, and possibility provided to familiarize yourself with the information. Actually, only nine legal entities actually showed some interest. And only 3 of those, when they saw the territories, when they saw the facilities, the people, the management, only 3 of them came up with the application request, and they paid the advance payment. One of them top vendor, they did not confirm the transfer of the money. They did not participate in the tender. And the shareholders are the offshore companies, which are not allowed by the effective legislation to participate in tender. The tender took place in the beginning of September. The company Favorite and Pratt. As a result of the winner of the tender was Ventilation System, who bought the shares for 16 million hryvnia. You can see the record of these tender procedures in the internet. So please visit that site and then put the questions. Regarding the price, the initial price, 15 million hryvnia, was established according to the valid regulations of the assessment in compliance with the accounting reports for the last 3 years. This is according to the effective legislation. This is the starting initial price. For this person, we actually involved in different investors and for the market to determine the price. Next, 16 million, and there were some 6 or 7 steps, but nobody prevented anybody to be involved in this tender, so they could have 10 or 15 investors and pay 100 or 200 million hryvnia. Esteemed colleagues, I would like to draw attention to that very important issue. The plot of land, which was mentioned in some mass media, the plot of land where this institute is located, is not included in the stated statutory capital. This belongs to the community of the city of Kiev. So the land was not sold. So that's why all those myths are absolutely groundless. Speaking about the investors, in respect to what has been paid for this enterprise, they are going to profile of their activities. At least 30 million hryvnia was the price of this package, and they are going to preserve their activities. They are going to produce the electric appliances. They are going to create new jobs. They are going to pay taxes and charges. They are going to document this plot of land, which they failed to do before. At last, the city budget will get some money for this plot of land. They are going to settle the debts associated with the failure to pay the salaries. More information is on our site. Due to the documents sent to the General Prosecutor's Office, we suspended this procedure, tender procedure. We are going to be involved in specific inspection recommended by the General Prosecutor's Office. I would like to involve SBU and all the law enforcement agencies and journals, so we could find the real truth. And the last thing, we started this privatization. Unfortunately, we are forced to resort to such meetings with the press and the mass media and TV media. Perhaps this is our reality, but I like to say that only those people are not interested in privatization who hope to steal the public funds through the scattering of the state property. So please let's stop this dissemination of untrue information, which actually adds another nail to the coffin of the privatization in Ukraine. We just started this privatization. We have a small-scale privatization so far and a big scandal. What is going to happen when we are going to sell the President Hotel or the near the port terminals factory? I just analyzed several of the projects which were included in the or sold through privatization. They were all accompanied with all kind of the judicial cases or suits or whatever. And so this is not the proper way to be taken. And once again, I would like to call upon everybody who would like to take part in this investigation. Please get involved. We are going to provide absolute transparency of this process, and at last we are going to demonstrate to everybody what kind of enterprise we are talking about. And somebody said allegedly this has some super secret materials. There are no contribution coming or money coming from this enterprise. This the age of bankruptcy. These enterprises, they wanted just to make their own. We did a good thing and demonstrate how it could be done. Such facilities like this institute, there are hundreds. We have about 500 institutes of this kind in Ukraine. About 3,000 facilities, project of small privatization, in 90% of those are real estate. 3,500 of the public-run, state-run enterprise. So let's take care of the investment climate. Thank you. Any questions? Perhaps the first question will come from you. How are you going to regulate these specific issues related to other projects? Are we talking about some additional procedures for verification to lift the legal risks which you mentioned regarding some projects and facilities before selling, to maybe to leave some kind of doubts or whatever? Of course, we are going to. Well, I understand now that what we have to do in order to prevent some such scandals associated with the General Prosecutor's Office or the people who are just pushing such procedures which are aimed at destabilization of the situation. We have some of the people in there, who just live in the courts, and there is no use or no benefit for the state when those assets are just suspended in the air, and maybe the third persons are interested in that. We are going to accompany all our actions with some expert follow-up, maybe some kind of judicial expertise, which we are going to come up with the assessment to prevent some silly ideas that we underestimated something or we did not do whatever was required. We everything do in a very transparent way. We are going to make it even more transparent. What else we are going to do? Of course, we would like to get more money, at least a bit more money, in order to disseminate more information about those facilities and projects which we are going to put to sales. And of course, financial is not sufficient. We cannot spread information to all of those who would like to get it. But we address, you know, that we meet in Chamber of Commerce, American Chamber of Commerce, and other experts. We just finished the stock taking of all the facilities and projects, and we try to at least to start to sell these smaller projects like this one, and to give it to the private hands, maybe not really for a big price, so those entrepreneurs could start some business at least, and not for those projects and facilities be just sitting there idling, you know, and it requires minimum salaries, minimum payments for electric power, water supply, etc. We are talking about dozens, if not hundreds of millions of hryvnia, which we do not get every year. When we tried, when we managed to involve the domestic investors, we had billions of incomes and profits. They have the export revenues, and when we block such investors in the court for the benefit in some sort of questions, which is nobody knows who, that's why we have to raise this issue, which I'm doing now. Let's together join our efforts just to fight this situation. Short question, Association of Assets Protection. Over the last 10 days, the Commission for Securities adopted two decisions to call back the license from the Ukrainian exchanges or the trade. Both of those exchanges participated in tenders. Will the process of privatization suffer from such decisions, or the procedure of price formation? No, it will not tell on that. I know that the Security Commission is involved in the thorough verification whether of the compliance to the activities of those two exchanges. I really wish that they are as soon as possible through with the situation and provide this as the necessary information which we can use in our work. May I remind you, try to simplify to maximum our activity, I mean state property fund, with the aim of the fastest possible privatization. So we sell the assets in two ways. Way number two, if the share in business of the company is between 25-50%, they are going to sell it through the auction or through exchange. If more less than 25, then we are going to put it to auction, to tender. What is going to go through the exchange, we are going to determine this exchange and to sell those enterprises. I really wish very much that while being involved in negotiations, some of the exchanges and realtors regarding the high scale or large scale new wave of privatization, all those smaller enterprises, we are talking about the real estate, actually small size privatization. We have, in addition to this kind of privatization for privates and several thousand again real estate which were not included in. We are talking about we are talking about the thousands of real estate projects which have to be sold, desirably with the help of some kind of program and not one by one, because one by one is too many of those. We try to find the necessary mechanisms which could motivate and stimulate realtors, in other words, the market entities or subjects who would help us to sell those projects. The price is very important, but the most important is to give those project facilities to private hands. TV enters. We are talking about the Research Institute for Electromechanical Instruments. If you knew before the position of the Chief Military Prosecutor's Office, why did you sell that? I didn't know the position of the military prosecutors. And when Mattis put in his Facebook page that everybody was absolutely against, I would tell you that we received about 10 letters from different ministers and departments, different ministers and the lower ranking persons who, for some reason, a few days before the privatization of this and other project, they would like to, within a few days, to return to their list of their companies, those facilities. They have to, the cabinet ministers, they have to pass the collegium decision and to generate a list and give to the specific department, which has to be done according to the existing procedure. Unfortunately, using such letters, you mean they try to block or delay or postpone the privatization of all those projects. Were there any letters? Yeah, there were. But those letters were absolutely non-specific. The letter was absolutely wrongly written. So did you know about those or not? So, okay, there is a certain procedure. Letters we receive on a regular basis. We actually reply to those letters according to the established procedure. We did not stop the tenders. We cannot stop the tender based on the letter from some kind of the public departments. except for the cabinet ministers. Cabinet ministers gives us the instruction. Otherwise, if we stop such things, there will be no privatization in our country. Again, a very short question.
Good morning, dear journalists and the honored head of the State Property Fund. I am the former head of the enterprise you mentioned. The former head because last year for 4 or 5 years the State Property Fund appointed me. Before that, I have been working in that enterprise for 40 or 50 years, and I headed the area of information safety. The statement of the head of the SPF told the lie to you now, but Mr. Mateos told the truth. We have been combating against the hostile takeover of our enterprise by the State Protective Fund, and there are very many criminal proceedings and pre-trial proceedings which are now pending, and our requests to Mr. Pashinsky, to the safety, to the security committee, they are pending, and then they are transferred to the subordinate instances, and then they got the prosecutor's office, and everything is stopped there. And who told you that there are some salary debts? There are no salary debts. There are no orders from the defense ministry, but the group which managed the institute, Mr. Sarokhanyan, appointed last year. I, in person, performed production activities for 4 million, but Mr. Sarokhanyan, when he was appointed, he terminated all such activities. And what was that criminal group doing? The group which was appointed by the SPF, they dismissed professionals and cancelled activities. This is the naked truth. Many tanks were sold for very low prices, and assets were also disappeared. Maybe Mr. Sarokhanyan, who is a resident of Crimea, maybe he sold those tanks and brought those tanks to Crimea. This is possible. I would like to disprove that. We have no orders. We have the information from the law enforcement bodies. I think that we can give you the platform, we can we can book the platform for you to give a speech on this matter. I would like to say that the resolution 271, it was adopted in January, but for the whole period when it has been enforced, nobody told that this enterprise has some documentation and so on. Why we can now have this documentation one day before the bidding? This looks very strange, and the collegial decision was adopted. I am against Mr. Sarokhanyan. I am combating with him because Mr. Sarokhanyan and his group would like to make this enterprise bankrupt and nobody and to get its assets. If you have the joint enemy, you can battle together. I have the letter from November 30 last year, and this letter is saying that for these 3 years they haven't had any orders from the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Defense approved, also confirmed this year also that they have no orders with this research institute. So such institute should not be sold out, should not be privatized. And I will affirm this standing because otherwise we don't have any investment climate in the country. Well, dear colleagues, we have time only for one question and then we will have the next briefing. The scheme you are talking about with attracting the ministries and agencies blocking the privatization, this position hasn't changed. And maybe this matter could be addressed through a wide-scale dissemination of information. Do you plan to raise these problems to the National Council of Reforms? Yes, there is the law 2319, and we would like to fix in this law these matters to simplify the procedures. I face that for the first time when at the latest stage of the bidding we found the facts and we faced a situation which I couldn't even imagine. And we will be cooperating with the law enforcement bodies. And the law enforcement bodies told us that there are no problems. How can then we address privatization issues? Should we do the work instead of law enforcement officers? We have 500 research institutions in our country, and most of them do not conduct any profile activities. They just lease their premises, that's all. That's the thing. Well, this is not the resolution, this is the request. Excuse me, we have the next briefing in a few minutes. In this context of small-scale privatization, we can see how urgent the matters of small-scale privatization are, and the decisive position, the resolute position of our government may face various interests and they can bump, they can clash. Thank you for the state property funds position which was voiced out. It will give us the opportunity to assess the situation in Ukraine, and if there is some questions about the policy of privatization, all these briefings could be arranged. So you're welcome to participate in our briefings. And now the briefing on the state property fund activities is over. Thank you.